Can you lose weight without counting calories? Yes, you absolutely can, and it's simpler than you think. And in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Hey, it's Aaron Kushler, and welcome back to the channel. On this channel, we explore the strategies and tools that help us live a healthier, happier, and more fulfilled life. One of the big problems that we solve for many of the clients that we work with is how to lose weight in a sustainable way that doesn't have them having to measure and weigh all of their food all of the time. Instead, we want our clients to be able to enjoy eating normally instead of worrying about if the food that they're eating has too many carbs in it or too much fat or too much of anything. We want them to be able to enjoy eating and at the same time know instinctively when they've had enough to eat and when they actually need to eat in the first place. Once they're able to do this, it becomes a lot easier for them to be able to manage situations like lunches, dinners with friends, eating with family, and even eating the foods that they love while still losing weight. So I'm going to walk you through 3 steps that you can start implementing today that'll help you be able to eat instinctively, meaning you can lose weight and also not have to worry about food all the time and instead just get on with life. Let's jump right into it. All right, so number 1, we're looking at eating slowly. Of the 3 methods I'm going to share with you today, this is probably where you want to start because this is the easiest to start with straight away. Why is this one so beneficial? Well, in today's environment, we're constantly distracted. We've got all these things competing for our attention, and therefore, as a result, we tend to eat really, really fast. We aren't focusing on the food we're eating. We're instead worrying about what's going on around us. We're having conversations with people. We might be watching TV or distracted on our phone. And therefore, our attention and focus is taken away from the task that we're doing, i.e. eating the food, and put onto something else. And therefore, eating becomes an afterthought. And as a result, we speed up and therefore we overeat. So when we slow things down, we actually allow ourselves to be more focused with what we're doing. And as a result, when we slow down, we listen and we get more in tune with our body's signals. And 9 times out of 10, when we slow things down, we end up eating less food anyway because we fill up quicker, or we fill up from eating the food that we're eating, and therefore we don't need to eat anymore. So how can you actually start implementing this as of today? One of the easiest ways is to use a meal timer. So I have a client at the moment, and basically what he will do is set a timer on his phone and take about 20 minutes to make sure that his meal takes him that long to eat. That might sound like a really long time. That also might not sound like very much time. It's really up to you and where you're sort of at. But if meals are, really quick and fast for you and you tend to be rushing the food down, this is a great start. Just setting that time that you've got and really just spreading the meal out over that time. So just really slowing things down. The next one is doing something in between bites. So it doesn't have to be complex. You don't have to be going and doing a different task. It could be something as simple as in between a bite, place your cutlery down, have a sip of water, couple of breaths, and then go and have another bite. Now, this might sound really almost silly, but we're trying to teach ourselves a new skill and a new habit. And once this becomes autonomous, it's going to be much, much easier for you to do instinctively. The next one's eat without distractions. So as we said before, we're constantly distracted. Our attention's being pulled in a million different directions. So what we want to try and do is cut all of those distractions. This could be as simple as making sure when you're eating a meal to sit at the table and focus on eating the meal. I don't know about you, but for myself, a lot of the times I find myself eating when I'm either, at the computer or when the TV is on. My attention's not with what I'm doing. So I like to then take all of those distractions away and only eat when I'm at the table. So therefore all the distractions are removed. I can focus on what I'm doing. And doing it this way, to be honest, you actually enjoy your food more. You actually start to taste the food and enjoy it. You want to be enjoying the process of eating. The next one is pace yourself with the slowest eater. No doubt you've got a friend where you might go out to lunch or to dinner with who always eats slower than everyone else. Most of the time, we tend to, maybe judge this person and go, oh, they're really slow at eating. This person now, I want you to pace yourself with them. Use their speed as a pacer for yourself. Keep up with them. If you find yourself getting ahead, slow things down, keep in pace with them. And what you're going to find is very much the same as with all the other methods. When we slow things down, we get full, and therefore we don't feel like we need to eat as much, and therefore we cut down the amount of food we are eating. The last one is notice what affects your eating speed. So this is really, really important, and this is where you're going to start to make leaps and bounds with this, is once we can notice what it is that actually speeds us up in the first place. So for example, you might be, let's say you're eating at the computer and it's lunchtime and you've got all these work meetings coming up. All right, if you're at the computer and you might be having a Zoom call with someone while you're trying to eat your food, you might subconsciously be thinking about, well, it's not very professional of me to be eating while I'm chatting with this person. And therefore you will actually speed up your pace to get that done so you can focus on the call. What we want to try and do is notice at what point do you feel like you're speeding up? You know, do you finish your meal and you go, where the hell did that go? Those are the things that we want to take notice of. So that is eating slowly, and that is step number 1. All right, so step number 2 is going to be eat only when hungry. All right, most of us are actually out of tune with when we're physically hungry. You know, we're bombarded with all these different messages about food that you know, we're constantly stimulated into wanting food all of the time. So we're surrounded by it. Food is no longer something that is really scarce for us to get. It's readily available. We have plenty of different options to choose from. So we have all of these messages coming at us all day long, which are tapping into our brain, to our subconscious mind. We have the ability to just go out and eat whenever we like. One of the things that we encourage and teach to our clients is learning to actually recognize those hunger signals that our body naturally gives us. And so the easiest way to do that is with something called the hunger scale. So what we've got here is a scale from -10 all the way through to a +10, okay? With 0 obviously being neutral. Down the -10, we've got starving. So this would be how you're feeling after maybe a whole day without any food, or it could even be a couple of days without eating food. So the real hunger signals that we're getting are, you know, we need to eat something and we need to eat something now. It doesn't matter what it is, I just need, you know, something to eat. So that would be a -10. A neutral is an interesting one. Neutral is where we don't feel, we're not thinking about food, and we're feeling content. So we're sort of in a situation where we could eat, but we also don't feel like we need to eat. So we're kind of just sitting in the middle there. And then +10, so down this end of the spectrum here, we've got overfull. So this would be after, let's just say, for example, Christmas lunch, after we've had, you know, mountains and mountains of food, and we're sitting there and we're feeling kind of like sick and bloated, and our stomach feels like it's 3 times the size, and we're feeling very uncomfortable. So that would be a +10 up on that scale. So what we encourage our clients to do is actually just make a mental note about when you're actually feeling hungry and where you would sit on this scale. You know, where would you rate yourself in terms of your signals that your body's giving you? Now, these aren't you know, signals where your brain's telling you, hey, I want to go and eat a packet of Tim Tams, or I want to go and have, you know, a burger from this place down the road. That's more of an emotional response. We're wanting a particular food, a craving. That is in a different category. So this is really tapping into when you get growling stomach, your stomach starting to almost hurt. We're getting a bit lightheaded, like real physical hunger cues that a lot of us have never really experienced before, or we haven't experienced very recently. So we kind of fall out of tune with them. That's what we want to be tapping into. And what we encourage people to do is eat when they reach a -2, so mild hunger. So what does that even look like? What does a -2 look like? Well, that's where you're starting to get the grumbling in the stomach. You might be feeling just lack of energy, therefore a little bit of food. Doesn't matter what it is, you could eat a freshly steamed bowl of broccoli. Anything at that point is going to give you a pickup and give you some energy to get going. Really taking note of where we're sitting. Remember, we want to be aiming for a -2. We don't want to be eating when we're either a 0 or in the plus range. Okay, so if we've just eaten a meal, let's say for example, you know, and it might be an hour or half an hour later, and we kind of feel content, maybe we're still digesting that meal, we don't want to be then eating more food on top of that. So that would put us in the plus range, and therefore we'd be overeating. We'd be working our way to the +10 side. Okay, so we want to give it time. make sure that we're on the negative side, and there's nothing wrong with being a little bit hungry. So one of the things that we often hear when we do teach this to clients is they will say, oh, but I'm always feeling hungry. I always feel like I want to eat bread or I want to eat pasta. When we have a craving or a want for something specific, so it doesn't matter what it is, but if you're wanting a specific type of food, that's driven by emotion rather than a physical cue that your body is giving you. So what we want to do for the purposes of the hunger scale and what we're talking about here is really tap into those physical cues. Physical hunger, you get those sort of feelings and it's not urgent. You can eat later on, but you need to eat. When we're getting an urgent feeling like, oh, I have to eat all of this right now, or I really feel like a biscuit or a sandwich or something specific, and it's really got that sense of urgency, that is driven by emotion. So we won't be talking about that in this video today, but that is a separate topic in of itself. Again, what we want to do, there's no hard, fast rule with this. We want to teach it as a bit of a guideline, and it doesn't matter if you're a -1 or a -3, like don't get too hung up on that. You just want to be looking for, are you about this range? If so, that's a good indication that by all means go and eat at that point. The other thing that I will add is if, for example, say we're out at lunch with friends and we might not be feeling necessarily hungry, but we do want to have something to eat, recognize that if we eat beyond that point of neutral, we're making an active decision to eat. And what we want to teach our clients is own the decision and be comfortable with it. So we want to try and move away from the mind frame of mindless eating where we feel like, oh, I had to eat something because I was out with friends. We're putting that decision on something else. So if we choose to eat beyond this point, we want to own it. We want to say, okay, cool, yeah, I made the decision to eat this food. That's cool. All right, so here we are with number 3. And as I said earlier, a lot of these 3 steps that we've gone through are in a specific order. So number 3 is a little bit harder to learn than the other 2, but as with anything, the more we practice it and the more we start to use eating slowly, eating when we're physically hungry, we're going to make it easier for us to then do this one. So this one is essentially like the icing on the cake. This one is the one that's going to make a big difference in terms of the amount of food we're going to be eating and therefore impacting our weight. So if we're eating less than our body needs, we're going to lose weight and it's going to be much easier for us. So this one is going to be stop when satisfied. All right, so as I said before, in today's society, we're constantly distracted. We've got all of these things competing for our attention. And one of the things that doesn't allow us to do is actually recognize when we've had enough food. And more often than not, when we're eating really quickly, we blow past that point and then we often feel really bloated and feeling really sick. You might have, issues with either being bloated or having gas, just constantly feeling like there's some stomach issues going on. 9 times out of 10, that's actually to do with the speed at which you're eating and because we've eaten too much food. All right, we're too far onto this end of the scale. If you guys remember the hunger scale, so we've got -10, starving, +10, we're over full. So if we're blowing past that point, we're up around the +10. We've eaten way too much. What we encourage clients to do with this is using this scale again. So we've recognized now where we're physically hungry, when we're mild hunger, -2. When we're eating a meal, we want to take note and recognize when we would be at a +2. We're just satisfied at a +2. So we're past the neutral zone and now, we recognize that we've had something to eat. Easiest way to recognize at this point if you've had the right amount is ask yourself, could you get up and go and walk up some steps and do something physical without feeling like you're going to be sick? All right, that's a really simple and easy way. It kind of sounds a little bit silly, but if you're sitting there and you're eating and you ask yourself that question, could I just jump up right now and go and do a walk and not feel sick? Then you're right at that point where you're feeling just satisfied. And that is the cue. That's where we want to try and draw the line and stop eating at that point. If we go past that point, if we're sitting there, we've eaten our food and then we feel, hey, I couldn't get up. If I did, I'd probably end up feeling kind of sick. we've probably gone a little bit too far in this direction. And don't stress out, it's gonna take time and take practice, like I've said a few times now, to learn where these points are. But the main thing is we wanna just be familiar with it and practice stopping at this point. The other thing I'll briefly touch on, because this is a concern that we hear time and time again when we do teach this particular method, when we're trying to stop when we're satisfied, what happens if there's food left over? I feel wasteful if I'm leaving food. And the fact of the matter is that's a belief system that was instilled into us when we were quite young, and we're told, make sure you finish all of your food. There's people in parts of the world that can't afford food, and therefore it's wasteful if we throw it away. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to ask yourself, what's more wasteful? Me eating this food just because of a belief system and then trying to lose it later on, or stopping at the point where I've had enough to eat, I feel comfortable, and if I eat any more, I'm probably going to be sick, so I'm going to stop now. We can take the food and we can store it away for later, have it another time. We don't have to physically force it in and therefore be regretting it later on. So that's an interesting one, and that's probably a topic for another video, but that's often a concern that we hear when we're teaching this particular topic. And just remember, that comes from a belief. It's not a wasteful thing if you feel satisfied, if you feel content, and you decide to stop there. So there you have it. Those are 3 simple steps that you can start using today to help you eat more instinctively so that you can lose weight a lot easier, and it doesn't have to be such a frustrating and confusing process. We went over eating slowly, just simply slowing things down, eating when we're physically hungry, waiting for those hunger signals to come up and for our body to actually tell us, hey, I need something to eat. And then number 3, stopping when we're satisfied. So not going past to the point of feeling really full. We're actually stopping well before that when we feel content and we feel like we've just had just enough food. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, give the video a thumbs up down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.